Jayakale tu sattvasya devarshi rajaso suram tamaso yaksharakshamsi tat kala guno bhaja. Jayakale tu sattvasya devarshi rajaso suram tamaso yaksharakshamsi tat kala guno bhajat. Word to word translation. Jayakale, in the time of prominence, to indeed, Sattvasya, of goodness, Deva, the demigods, Rishin, and the sages, Rajasa, of passion, Asuran, the demons, Tamasa, of ignorance, Yaksharakshamsi, the Yakshas and Rakshasas, Tatkala Anuguna, according to the particular time, Abhajad fostered. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. When the quality of goodness is prominent, the sages and demigods flourish with the help of that quality, with which they are infused and surcharged by the Supreme Lord. Similarly, when the mode of passion is prominent, the demons flourish, and when ignorance is prominent, the yakshas and rakshasas flourish. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is present in everyone's heart, fostering the reactions of Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. This is fairly long purport. We will go through it in sections and we can take some pauses and discuss. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not partial to anyone. The conditioned soul is under the influence of the various modes of material nature. And behind material nature is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But one's victory and loss under the influence of Sattva Guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna are reactions to these modes, not of the Supreme Lord's partiality. So we are discussing this section, which is Parikshit Maharaj has asked a question how it appears that Vishnu or Krishna is taking side of the demigods and he's helping them win in the battle, and it appears that he's not favoring the demons because it's taking away the kingdom from them and giving it to the demigods. So Parikshit Maharaj is asking a question which can be quite natural for a lot of people, is that why is God being partial? And what's the problem in him being partial? Well, that means that he has something to gain and that he is envious of someone, which is only then you will take a side. You know, when there's a war and the two countries are fighting, sometimes another country will take side of one country and go against the other country. Why would it take side? Why would they take side? It's because there's some mutual relationship, there's some mutual gain from that. So is Krishna the same? Is God the same? Is he waiting for some favor from his devotees, from the demigods? Is that why he's favoring them? And that he's envious of the demons? And is it why he wants them to sort of come down and lose? Why he seems to act like an ordinary human being? So that's the question Parikshit Maharaj is asking. And here is a very beautiful series of verses where Shukadeva Goswami is going to explain how Lord is not partial. So that's the chapter title as well. And we can see how there are different modes and that there are different personalities, there are different people that are attracted to different modes. There are mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. And there are people who are attracted to different modes according to their own inclinations, their own desires for enjoyment. We can see just like the day is divided in three modes. There's mode of goodness, which is usually the time before sunrise. And that's the reason why we chant in the morning. That's why we have the whole morning program, which starts at least 2 to 3 hours before sunrise. It's the perfect time for goodness because our activities are in mode of goodness, or it's meant to be in mode of goodness. So we can chant in the morning, and that chanting is the most effective chanting of the day. And there are certain people, there are books written about the 5 a.m. club, which people realize that morning hours, they are the best hours to actually do anything in goodness. That's why one of the research from the uh, one of the research analyzing the top entrepreneurs of the world, and it was observed that they all actually tend to wake up about 4 or 5 a.m. And that's the time when they all do the reflections, their journalings, their exercise, their meditation, because that's the time when mind is most clear, most fresh. That's mode of goodness. But it's not going to attract people who are not in mode of goodness. So usually after the sunrise, after 8 a.m., 9 a.m., that's kind of the time. 10 a.m., that's usually the time in the mode of passion. That's the time when you go to work. That's the time when you're really thinking about productivity. That's the time when you're thinking about gains and work, and that's when a lot of desires start coming in. Passion is kicking in. And in the mode of ignorance, which is the evening part after 5, 6 p.m., that's the kind of time when sun goes down, it becomes a bit dark. That's when people are a bit tired from their work. So now it's time to relax and enjoy. So that's the time of mode of ignorance when all the people in ignorance, they start to come out and start to dress in a certain way, act in a certain way, express themselves in certain ways. We usually don't see people drinking at like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. It just doesn't feel right because that's not the time for it. So they don't thrive. The people in mode of ignorance, they don't thrive in the morning. The people in mode of passion, they don't thrive in the night. It's just not their time for it. So there are hours, there's time, and when people thrive in that time, in that mode, if you go out on book distribution, and if you are organized enough to start early, say around 9 or 9:30 a.m., you see this morning crowd, which is kind of like a little bit peaceful. The people are a little bit slow. If you stop them, they kind of stop and look at you, and that somewhat welcoming, or they're somewhat open and receptive to talk to you. So that goes from 9 a.m., 9:30, 10 a.m. And usually around 10 and 10:30 a.m. I guess it depends on the cities. So I live in Melbourne, and what I have seen is around 10:30 east is when all of a sudden it's almost like a force that's pulling everyone, that's pushing everyone. All of a sudden, people's speed of walking just changes. So sometimes you can see a person walking from one end of the street, and you can see how he's easily walking and very relaxed. And 5 or 10 minutes passed, and it's around 10:30, 10:30 ish. And all of a sudden, his pace of walking just increases. Like all of a sudden, the person that was very inclined to talk to you like 10 or 15 minutes ago, all of a sudden I said, no, I'm busy. I'm busy. I need to go. I need to do things. My boss is waiting for me. I need to reply to a call, a message, an email. So you can see like the passion is just taking over all of a sudden. So you can see, and if you do long enough days for book distribution, you can see how this whole mode of passion and 4 and 5 and 6 o'clock. And usually after 6:30 is when people kind of start to slow down. And they're actually a little bit more open to talk to you because again, they're a bit slow. They're not, the passion just drives them too fast. The more of ignorance kind of slows them down, and they're a little bit more inclined to talk again. Of course, you are likely to find them under the influence of different substances, but still they're a bit more open. And sometimes they're a bit more appreciative because they can see a gap between their consciousness and the devotee's consciousness. And they can see like, yeah, like even though I'm kind of happy and enjoying what I'm doing, I can see that there's a stark difference in how peaceful this person looks or seems to act, like, and they're somewhat inclined to that, somewhat appreciative of that. So anyway, so there's a times of the day and you get to see that. And so again, just the way how the translation to these words is explaining how the different living entities that flourish under different modes. So we can see how there are different times of the day and how the different living entities that are going to flourish during those times. There is also like, actually when I was in London though, because London, the temple is right in the middle of the city. It's amazing. It's a building. You just come out of that and you come to the Oxford Street is probably one of the busiest street on the planet, one of the busiest streets. And Oxford Street is right there with like 1 minute walk. And so all these people who getting absolutely smashed in the night from drinking and whatever else they do in the night. And you can hear them in the morning during Mangal Arati. They're like just shouting and just screaming and some like, get out of my way. And you can hear that in the Mangal Arati time, like, and then if you peek through the window, you can see that they're sitting somewhere in the corner. It's absolutely dirty. And they're sitting there shouting. And you wonder, like, whom are they shouting against? And there's nobody there. They're just like completely out of their minds. And sometimes they're just like gibbering all morning, carrying forward from their modes. But anyway, so that's the modes and how the different people that thrive in that. There's also the food that certain places that serve certain food or certain drinks and it attracts certain kind of people. There's certain environments that attract certain kind of people. And they did this research, I was reading about it a while ago, where there's certain areas in the city where a lot of these rowdies sort of coming together and creating a commotion. And it was becoming a bit out of control. And so this council, this city council, the government officials, they did not know how to chase them away. So they tried different ways and it wasn't really working. They try and push them, but then obviously the more you try and push them away, the more they want to do it. So then one point they realized what they could do and what they did do and what actually chased all these people away is they cleaned up the place. They put on a nice classical music in the background and they painted the walls like with some nice bright colors. And lo and behold, these people just felt like they don't belong there anymore. it's just not it's just not dirty enough, it's not messy enough, it's not chaotic enough for them to be there. And so they just found there another spot where they can hang out. So we can see how the modes attract different kind of people. And similarly for the devotees, hopefully we keep our internals and externals clean. We keep our rooms clean. Uh, Sometimes you can see some of the devotees and their surroundings, the environment can be so dirty, it can be so messy. It almost would represent um, their consciousness. And I think there was one time when Prabhupada went to a place in one of the temples and it was so messy and dirty. And Prabhupada went and Prabhupada saw that how dirty this place is. And he asked the devotees, don't you feel like uncomfortable in this place because it's so dirty? He said, you only wouldn't feel that if you are in mode of ignorance. But if you are in mode of goodness, and if you go to a place which is in mode of ignorance, you'll naturally feel out of place. You feel like you want to clean that place up. And that's the reason one of the quality that Prabhupada said a Brahmana represents is that he always leaves the place cleaner than what he found it. So again, that's modes and different living entities under different modes that thrive in that modes. That's why certain devotees are just naturally inclined to wake up in the morning. They just thrive in the morning hours. And for most of us who were not trained to wake up in the morning, I remember in my uni days, I used to go to bed at 4 a.m. So that's so there was like a big shift from going to bed at 4 a.m. to waking up at 4 a.m. Because usually we would come from work at around 8, 9 a.m., 9 p.m., then somehow gather the courage to get out of the couch and kind of try and cook something because you're hungry. This is the classic uni life, miserable. And it'd be myself with other friends, and we're okay, no, let's push it, let's try. So try and cook something, and then it's like time to clean now, and nobody wants to clean, so then they just leave it there for next day, and the next day, and sometimes you leave it in this dishwasher, and you realize that just leaving the vessels in the dishwasher doesn't make them clean. You need to do something about them. So anyway, when we start smelling, there's something doesn't smell right. Oh, we didn't clean those pots, those dishes. Maybe it's the time. So you clean it. And then you're so tired and so frustrated from the whole day. It's absolutely like there's no like higher pleasure, better thing to look forward to. So then what do you do now? You just put on a movie or something, like it's like 11 or 12 o'clock and it's like, yeah, but like you're so frustrated, like, like from the whole day, it's like same thing over and over again, like you got some entertainment. So then you put on a movie, goes on for like 2 or 3 a.m. and then By then, most of the friends have passed out. You're kind of like, so whoever is the last person to stay awake kind of closes the screen, turns off the lights, sends everyone to bed. Classic life and mode of ignorance is a university schooling days. so so miserable, and that's what so many of the people that I know, they still do it after 10 years, after 15 years. They haven't grown out of it. Probably just change the way how they do it, or change the way they do it with, but it's effectively the same thing. So the modes are still directing them, and they're just flourishing in that mode of ignorance. But lucky in the association of devotees and the association of these teachings, that we're slowly starting to cultivate mode of goodness. See, even though we're not born in it, even though we didn't grow up in it, we can at least cultivate those modes and those qualities and learn to thrive in these modes, and clean up ourselves a little bit. And in that way, learn to find our happiness, our satisfaction in that mode. So anyway, that's the there's the influence of these modes and how people and living entities thrive in that. Prabhupada explains here how, even though this material nature, which is the modes representing the three modes, is under the control of the Supreme Lord, Mayadhyakshena Prakriti Suyata Sacharacharam, Krishna says, is that this Mayadhyakshena Prakriti, this energy is under my supervision. But Lord is not controlled or influenced by the modes or the reaction of these modes. Then continuing on the purport, Prabhupada quotes Srila Jiva Goswami in the Bhagavad Sandarbha has clearly said, Satvadayo Santishe Yatra Cha Prakrita Guna Sa Shuddha Sarva Shuddhebhya Puman Adya Prasidatu Hladini Santini Samvit Traya Eka Sarva Samstito Hlada Tapa Karip Mishra Tvai no Guna Varjite. According to this statement of the Bhagavad Sandarbha, the Supreme Lord, being always transcendental to the material qualities, is never affected by the influence of these qualities. The same characteristic is also present in the living being, but because he is conditioned by the material nature, even the pleasure potency of the Lord is manifested in the conditioned soul as troublesome. So here again, Prabhupada is quoting Bhagavad Sandarbha to point that the Lord is always transcendental to the material qualities and is not affected or influenced by these qualities. And we can see how the whole process of Krishna consciousness is meant to bring living entity to come above the modes, to at least come to the mode of goodness first, and use the mode of goodness as the springboard to come to the transcendental mode. Because, of course, even if someone can be in mode of goodness and can be very proud of it, sometimes as devotees, when we start to attend Mangala Aartis or morning programs, especially the new devotees, they can start feeling this uh, senior devotee syndrome. Like, yeah, I'm a senior devotee now. I'm getting up every day Mangala Aarti, and I'm chanting every day and sitting in one place. And some devotees can get really very confident about the seniority, and they start pointing out, look at that devotee, look at that devotee. He doesn't come to morning programs. He doesn't chant attentively. He's not very clean, but I am good. I actually made advancement. And so in that pride, they start making so many criticisms and so many offenses, actually, even to Vaishnavas. And they somehow start feeling that I'm senior enough and I'm advanced enough, and now the devotees start to recognize me, should recognize me, and they should appreciate me. So there is naturally these qualities that come in the mode of goodness, that is the quality of pride and quality of superiority and this higher sense of enjoyment. But what happens as soon as we start doing that? Krishna just smashes us. And then all of a sudden, you hear 5 alarms and you still can't get up for the morning. You try hard as you can, you still can't sit in one place and chant your routes. Mind gets so disturbed. Krishna says that you thought that was from your own strength. Now try do it now. As book distributors, we start to feel like, oh yeah, I'm actually a good distributor. And one time, one devotee, he was very confident. He said to his spiritual master, I'm actually a very good distributor and I can distribute to anyone. Spiritual master could see the pride in him because he was distributing books every day. And he was getting very confident because he was the best book distributor. And he told the spiritual master, I can distribute book to anyone. Spiritual master, really? Try today. So he said, yeah, sure, of course I'll go. I go out every day. And I did a whole day of book distribution. He went out for book distribution. He distributed books. Or he went out whole day. He could not distribute one book. And just like, what happened? I'm the same person. I'm saying the same things I always did. So nobody's stopping. Nobody wants a book from me. What happened? Krishna smashes that ego. But for a devotee who is humble and who consistently, who continuously strives for advancement, then Krishna blesses them. And he continuously makes progress to the point where he becomes transcendental to the modes. And we have many examples in our own communities. We have many examples of great spiritual masters and teachers that we can confirm that yes, they are beyond the modes of material nature and they're completely engaged in service. And despite the hectic traveling schedules, they're able to just keep up their sadhana. They're able to keep up their preaching. Some of these devotees that travel, when I was traveling with my spiritual master, and we flew from Australia to India, which is about 13-hour, 12 or 13-hour flight. And there was an overnight flight. So we flew in the night. We got to India in the morning after 13 hours of flight and 5.5 hours of jet lag and absolutely not having slept whole night. I saw like Maharaj just got up in 2 or 3 hours because there was a japa time. And he just chanted his rounds in the morning. And then he followed the whole schedule how he would do, like any other part of the world. And I'm like struggling and jet lagged and not having slept whole night. And I'm just like, my head is like completely somewhere else. And Maharaj just continues. And then 24 hours, we fly and take another flight for like another 10 hours with another 5 hours of time difference. And he just quickly catches up onto it and just moves on with his schedules. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around, like, where am I and what's happening? But we can see how they have transcended those modes and they're able to push through their schedules and they're chanting and they remain attentive and continue the services because even just while I'm traveling with him, I'm struggling to like just keep myself together while he has to look after himself, he's to look after me and make sure that I'm okay. And then, as soon as he lands to the airport, there's this whole lot of devotees expecting, give me attention, teach me. You are such a senior devotee, tell me this, tell me that. I have a question. We have a problem with our project, and now we're trying to do this and we're trying to do that. And they have to like quickly like adapt to where they are at. And 3 days later, they're in the next city and they have to like change the gears, like change the way how they talk, change the way how they encourage the devotees. And so it's constantly changing every 3-4 days. And so how is it possible if you're just caught up in your own mind and senses? And it's not just one devotee, we can see many such devotees. So we can see if the devotees are following the process properly, they're actually able to transcend the modes. So by associating with Krishna, if devotees can transcend the modes, then obviously Krishna has to be above the modes. So here Prabhupada explains that very nicely. Continuing on to the purport. This same characteristic is also present in the living being, but because he's conditioned by the material nature, even the pleasure potency of the Lord is manifested in the conditioned soul as troublesome. In the material world, the pleasure enjoyed by the conditioned soul is followed by many painful conditions. For instance, we have seen that in the two great wars which were conducted by the Rajoguna and Tamoguna, both parties were actually ruined. The German people declared war against the English to ruin them, but the result was that both parties were ruined. Although the Allies were apparently victorious, at least on paper, actually neither of them were victorious. Therefore, it should be concluded that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not partial to anyone. Everyone works under the influence of various modes of material nature, and when the various modes are prominent, the demigods or demons appear victorious under the influence of these modes. So there's a famous saying that no one ever comes out victorious in an argument. Both parties lose when you argue. So on a small scale or on the big scale, because at one point it's not about what's the right or what's good, it's about ego. So here we can see how both the parties in the world war, actually everyone lost, and it was um, ruination for both. So whom did Krishna favor? Actually, neither of them. They both fought according to their own modes of material nature, and both got ruined. So Krishna didn't favor anyone. One time we were doing Harinam, and there was a famous football match and MCG in Melbourne Cricket Ground, and two very famous countries were sort of playing the match. And sorry, was not MCG, was another arena. And so anyway, so this football game is very popular, and we're doing Harinam, and so this both the teams they're coming to us and they're asking, so which teams do you support? And we said we support both of them. And but they were very keen to know like whom would the Hare Krishna support, and then we're just going around and we're chanting Hare Krishna. So which one did we support? Which one would Krishna support? Actually, neither of them, because they're both just under the modes of nature, just this one soccer ball and 20 people running behind it, just trying to catch it. It's like, I mean, someone with some sanity can say like, hey, this doesn't make sense. Like, Just give everyone one ball, like let them be satisfied. It doesn't work like that. So anyway, so this is the modes of material nature. Krishna has got nothing to do with it. Just appears so insane. Everyone enjoys the fruits of his qualitative activities. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verse 11 to 13. सर्वद्वारेषु देहेऽस्मिन् प्रकाश उपजायते ज्ञानं यदा तदा विद्यात् विवृद्धं सत्वम् इत्युक्तः लोभप्रवृत्ति आरम्भ कर्मणाम् अश्रम स्पृहा यजस्येतानि जायन्ते विवृद्ध भरतर्षभ अप्रकाश अप्रवृत्तिश्च प्रमादमोह एव च तमस्य एतानि जायन्ते विवृद्धे कुरु नन्दन. The manifestations of the modes of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illumined by knowledge. O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase of the mode of passion, symptoms of great attachment, uncontrollable desire, hankering, and intense endeavor develop. O son of Kuru, when there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, madness, illusion, inertia, and darkness are manifested. So these are the qualities as represented in the Bhagavad Gita, the 14th chapter, the qualities of the modes. So the purport continues, but I wanted to, since we have only few minutes left, I wanted to ask if there are any questions or comments or corrections. And if not, then I can continue to read the purport. Yes, bro.
Quick difference. What's the difference between demons, yakshas, and rakshasas?
Demons, yakshas, and rakshasas. So the difference between them. Well, actually, rakshasas is another name for demon. But what Bhagavad Gita explains is that there are two kinds of beings: those who follow the Vedic rules and regulations, and those who don't. Those who follow are the demigods, or the Vaishnavas, and those who don't follow are the demons, or the Rakshasas, the Yavanas. Is that okay?
Curious in a sense, what does it say? It's talking about the passion is the demons, and then ignorance is the makes it wise like that. They didn't think it would be lower than the demons.
Right. So I mean, there are different classes of demons, the different levels of demons, different gradations. These the first class demon, the second class demon, etc. So the demons, when Prabhupada would refer to that, these are the words that are used, offered interchangeably. But in this particular reference, the demons in mode of passion would refer to the people who are very passionate and with strong desires driven by the sex desire, divine desire for the pleasure at the cost of anyone and anything. That's mode of passion. So that's the demon that Prabhupada is referring to here. This is another class of demon who just enjoys in getting drunk and getting wasted. Mode of ignorance. Yeah. Okay, so we would know if there are online questions. Okay, so we'll continue the purport, and if there's any question, anyone can raise their hands. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present in everyone's heart, simply gives the results of the increase in the various qualities, but he is impartial. He supervises victory and loss, but he does not take part in them. The various modes of material nature do not work all at once. The interactions of these modes are exactly like seasonal changes. Sometimes there is an increment of Rajoguna, sometimes of Tamoguna, and sometimes Sattva-guna. Generally, the demigods are surcharged with Sattva-guna, and therefore, when the demons and the demigods fight, the demigods are victorious because of the prominence of their Sattva-guna qualities. However, this is not the partiality of the Supreme Lord. So very clearly explains here how the different seasons, and just like the different seasons, and in different seasons, sometimes the heat is more prominent, sometimes the cold is more prominent, sometimes the rain is more prominent. So in the same way, there are sometimes different modes that are prominent in different seasons, at different times. Right. And so those people who are under those modes would appear to be victorious momentarily. And then when the season changes, the time changes, then they lose, and then someone else becomes victorious. So we have seen great heroes, great empires came out victorious, and the next minute completely destroyed. We see many great persons where great heroes destroyed the next minute. So, who is ultimately victorious? Actually, nobody. And is Krishna favoring anyone? No. It's just the modes of nature. It's the material nature just giving them the results of their own karma, the results of their own modes. And Krishna is not favoring or being partial to anyone. And as devotees, sometimes we might also think, we might not say that, but we as devotees often think that I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I'm practicing Krishna consciousness. Why is Krishna not giving me this? Like that devotee, look at him, how much opulence, how much money he's got. He's got a nice house, got a nice family, he's got good money, good job, good income, good savings, good inheritance. Look at me, I'm chanting Hare Krishna. I'm being very attentive. I'm attending everyday morning programs. I'm preaching. I'm distributing books. Why is Krishna not favoring me? Is Krishna being partial? Is Krishna favoring him and not me? So sometimes this this thought can come. We don't necessarily say that, but that comes to mind, and it's very important for us to know that Krishna is actually not favoring anyone, but Krishna is completely independent in what he wants to give a certain devotee, and he wants to take away from certain devotee, and that's completely his independence. That's Krishna being the supreme personality of Godhead. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Do we just end this meeting? Do we just end this meeting? How does it work? I'll leave it on. Okay.
Don't forget you got the.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much.
And Prabhu, we unplugged this must be. We don't keep this in for this, do they?
We can put it in front of it also for this. Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Nana Srivasari, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Paramam Pradikaya Tada Sri Srimad Abhaya Padike, the three Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Sarvati Thakur Srila and Purivasandiki and Namachai Sitakardas Thakur Ki, Grand the whole text speakers of Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srimati Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Samakrama, Radha Koti, Ki Govardhan Ki, Ganga Mai Ki, Savuna Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, Tulsi Mahani Ki, Samaveda Gupra Bhakti Vrinda Ki, Oh, God, what is somebody devotee? Oh, God, somebody devotee. Oh, God, Sri Guru and Gauranga. Padiki.